Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something that affects every single person listening, whether you're an athlete, an executive, or just someone trying to be your best.
Absolutely. We have a whole stack of research and training materials here, all focused on one big idea, that success at the end of the day is won or lost between the ears.
Right. Our mission for this deep dive is to really unlock this concept of inner excellence. We're going to treat the mind as what it is, the ultimate performance engine.
And we often think, that if we just put in more hours on the physical side of things, the footwork, the swing, the presentation, that the results will just happen.
Yeah, the reps, right? Just put in the reps.
Exactly. And while that preparation is obviously critical, the sources we've gathered point to a pretty shocking truth. Once you get to a basic level of competency in whatever you do,
Right.
the things that separate an elite championship level performance from a really poor one, they are overwhelmingly mental.
Overwhelmingly mental. I think that's where we have to start. It immediately makes me think of that, that famous Yogi Berra line.
Yeah.
90% of the game is half mental. It's funny. It makes no sense. But if you actually stop and think about what that means for your own performance,
Mm-hmm.
the actual percentage of your results that come from focus, from composure, from
Yeah.
belief, that joke starts to sound a lot like profound strategy.
It really does. I mean, we've got sources showing that statistically, mental skills account for 50%, often more of the difference between just being okay and achieving, peak excellence.
So we're here to give you the blueprint for building that mental muscle. Because if half the game is mental, then most of us are dedicating, what, 0 time to training it?
Pretty much zero. It's a huge blind spot.
Okay, let's unpack this with the source material right away. Let's start with the foundation, the internal reality we create through mental rehearsal. So our sources describe this really fascinating exercise. It was given to this diverse international group of professionals.
Right. And not just athletes. We're talking doctors, CEOs, fire chiefs, high-stakes negotiators, a real cross-section of high performers.
And they were asked to do something pretty simple. Visualize and compare their absolute best performance day against their absolute worst.
And the findings were just strikingly consistent no matter what their job was.
So what did they find?
When they were asked to put a number on it, to quantify that gap between their best and worst day and say what percentage was physical, tiredness, a mistake, versus what was mental.
Like focus or confidence?
Exactly. Focus, confidence, control. Almost every single person agreed that the separation was at least 50% mental.
50%.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you look at your own success, you have to realize that half of your potential might be getting held back by your mind.
And that's the challenge, right? It becomes immediate. Why aren't we dedicating time to mental conditioning?
Well, I think you hit it earlier. It just sounds too abstract, too woo-woo for a lot of people.
It feels abstract, but the physiology behind it is incredibly concrete. The source material uses this perfect analogy. It calls the brain a VCR, or, a modern digital recorder.
Okay, a VCR.
I like it. Your mind records every vivid thought, every image, every fear, every success. But the critical insight, and this can be kind of frightening, is that the human body treats every one of those vivid thoughts as if it's real and happening right now.
That is a huge point. That's why you can be jolted awake from a really intense nightmare,
Yeah.
right? The monster wasn't real, but the adrenaline dump, the fast heartbeat, the muscle tension, all of that was absolutely real.
Yes, you were literally programming your body to experience terror.
Wow.
So mental training isn't just wishful thinking. The studies prove that vivid mental practice actually creates new neural pathways. It strengthens existing ones. It engages the motor cortex in a way that is very, very similar to actual physical practice.
So you're literally programming your body to react to success, not to that paralyzing fear.
And you enhance performance, productivity, and this is a big one, your enjoyment of what you're doing.
This intentional conditioning, this is what the sources call achieving the head edge. It's not fluffy. Sports psychology is the science of success. It's systematically studying what the most successful people do, and imagery, mental rehearsal. It's always at the very top of that list.
Yeah, and we have several of the foundational studies that really illustrate this link between mental and physical repetition. One of the most compelling is the college basketball free throw experiment.
Oh, this is a classic, but I feel like the conclusion gets overlooked a lot. So they took 3 groups of athletes, all with equal ability, right?
Correct. Group 1 did what you'd expect, traditional physical practice. They shot free throws for an hour every day.
Right.
Group 2 did 0 physical practice, 0. Instead, they just visualized shooting free throws successfully for an hour a day.
Just sat there and thought about it.
Just sat there and thought about it. And the third group, they split the time. 30 minutes of actual shooting, 30 minutes of visualizing.
So the expectation would be that the physical group, the ones putting in the reps, would just blow everyone else away.
That's what you'd think. But the group that split the time, the 30 minutes physical, 30 minutes mental, they showed the greatest overall improvement.
Wow.
The key takeaway here is that the visualization proved to be just as impactful on accuracy and muscle memory as the physical reps. They learned to perform successfully without even touching the ball for half of their training time.
But wait, hold on. Doesn't that just fundamentally contradict decades of coaching advice that says put in the reps, physically? How do we square those two ideas?
That's the paradox, isn't it? It doesn't replace the physical work. It makes it better. It optimizes it. The imagery trains the nervous system. It refines that motor program, but without the physical fatigue. We saw this play out with the U.S. Olympic ski team.
Oh, yeah.
A sports psychologist started an imagery training program for half the team. The improvement in that visualization group was so dramatic, so accelerated.
That the other group was getting left behind.
Exactly. The coach, he was afraid of creating a competitive disadvantage for his own control group, so he immediately ended the experiment and insisted that all the athletes adopt the mental routine.
So it wasn't just a slight edge. It was game-changing.
It was absolutely game-changing.
So if we look at the people who have really mastered this head edge, we see that it becomes a mandatory part of their routine. The best example that our sources cite is the soccer legend, Pelé.
Pelé's pregame ritual was, it was non-negotiable. 30 minutes of absolute solitude. He'd stretch out in the locker room, cover his eyes, and start what he called rolling his mental camera.
And what's key here is that it wasn't just robotic repetition of the game ahead.
Not at all. He broke the visualization into 3 crucial parts. First, he'd go back to his childhood. He'd see himself playing soccer on the beaches of Brazil, reliving the pure joy, the fun, the passion that got him started in the first place. This connected him to the emotional core of his game.
So he's grounding himself in purpose first.
Precisely. Second, he'd replay a highlight reel of his greatest triumphs, specifically his World Cup moments. He was reliving the actual sensation of success and confidence.
Okay, so joy, then confidence. And only then, I'm guessing, did he get to the upcoming match.
Only after grounding himself in joy and success. The third step was rehearsing the actual game he was about to play. Seeing himself dribbling, seeing the defenders, seeing himself scoring goals.
He was scripting success. He was downloading the feeling of triumph directly into his body before he ever stepped onto the pitch.
And this profound mental prep, it wasn't some afterthought. It was the mechanism that ensured his talent could actually be expressed under pressure.
So Pelé was mastering his internal script. And that brings us directly to the mental battle against that negative inner voice, what the sources call mind games. If the mind can only consciously focus on one thing at a time, then we have to be absolutely ruthless about focusing on what we do want, not what we don't want.
This is the law of dominant thought. And it's the downfall of so many performers. I mean, think about the classic scenario. The weekend golfer on the 18th hole, there's a water hazard right in front of them.
Right.
What is the immediate, instinctive, internal command?
Don't hit it in the water. Every single time.
And as soon as you focus on the water, you've just programmed your target. The mind works with images and instructions. If you are visualizing failure, splash and pacious, your muscles are getting instructions focused on the location of the threat.
So you're aiming at what you're trying to avoid.
Exactly. The proactive, the effective instruction has to be positive and actionable. You have to replace that negative thought with a specific, desired destination.
So instead of don't hit it in the water,
you focus on land the ball 10 yards to the right of the pin. You give your mind a clear, positive flight path to follow.
We see this powerful switch in a really detailed anecdote about a Chicago Cubs pitcher who was just struggling terribly. He'd been shelled in his last start, felt completely lost.
Yeah, and when his sports counselor asked him to just, talk through the self-talk he had on the mound, it was a disaster. It was just this rapid-fire sequence of self-sabotage. Don't hang your curveball. Don't walk this guy or I'm going to lose my spot in the rotation. I can't believe I just gave up that home run. His entire internal narrative was focused on avoidance and failure.
The counselor realized the pitcher's physical mechanics were probably fine. He was just paralyzed by this fear and this negative self-talk.
Right. So the assignment was simple, but it was really demanding, he said. List the 3 to 5 performance keys you use when you are absolutely on your game.
Not outcomes, but actions.
Exactly. Not get a win, but the specific actions. So the list included things like, I'm locating my fastball, I'm generating good rotation on my curve, and I have good balance over the rubber.
And the instruction was, what? Just repeat those.
The instruction was, before your next start, focus only on those keys. The second a negative thought enters your mind, you immediately replace it with one of those positive action statements.
And the result was the complete game shutout 5 days later.
A complete game shutout. He didn't physically transform in less than a week. He just chose how to think. He effectively switched the internal radio station from fear-based commentary to action-oriented instruction.
You can, quite literally, choose how you think, and that changes your performance.
That choice is what leads the truly elite to establish what they call the mind gym.
The mind gym. I like that.
Mark McGwire, for example, he confessed that before his final at-bat in that record-breaking 1998 season, he sat in the dugout, eyes closed, mentally rehearsing the swing, the feel of the ball connecting with the bat. He practiced the moment before he lived it.
And Bob Tewksbury, the Cardinals' all-star pitcher, he took this to an extraordinary level of personalization.
Oh, his was amazing.
His mind gym wasn't just closing his eyes. It was this elaborate internal bubble-like studio.
It had a high-powered energy machine, a continuously flashing ticker tape that was scrolling positive affirmations.
And a big screen TV mounted overhead that was playing only his highlight reel.
I mean, the utility of this mind gym is just profound. Even if he was physically tired or injured or there was a rain delay, he could still go there. He could practice his mental command and composure.
So his confidence, which is really the bottom line of excellence, it never wavered because it was built on this foundation of preparation he could access anytime, anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we've prepared the mind and we've refined that internal narrative, what happens when external reality, I mean, the immense crushing pressure of a high-stakes moment, what happens when that kicks in?
Yeah.
Scott Hamilton said pressure can make you perform 50% better or 15% worse. That is a massive variable.
It is, and pressure is a physical phenomenon. Even when it's self-imposed, which guys like John Elway and Mark Messier realized it often is, the body responds automatically.
Your heart rate spikes, breathing quickens, muscles tense up.
Right. Jack Nicklaus specifically noted that in golf, tension makes you hurry, and that leads to rushed decisions and really poor technique.
But the key here isn't to eliminate pressure, it's to manage it. I mean, without pressure, you don't get peak performance. Goose Gossage, the relief pitcher, famously said he wasn't at his best until the situation was at its worst. He needed that high arousal.
He did. But if you get too aroused, you choke. So how do you find that sweet spot?
That's the million-dollar question.
We use what's called the performance curve. You can visualize it as an inverted U.
Okay.
Performance or productivity is on the vertical axis, and stress or arousal is on the horizontal. As arousal increases, performance rises, it hits a peak, that's the optimal level, and then it rapidly declines if arousal goes too high.
This is where you have to know your numbers.
You have to know your numbers. Everyone has an optimal number for peak efficiency, let's say a 6 or 7 on a scale of 10, but that number is fluid.
It's not static.
No, it depends on 3 things. Your natural temperament. Are you a calm sedan or a high-revving Porsche? The length of the event, and the nature of the task itself. A center blocking a shot needs a different level than a three-point shooter.
And we have some great case studies that illustrate what happens when you miss your number.
Yeah, take the NHL rookie, high draft pick, immense talent. He came out for games as a 9 or 10, sometimes an 11. He was just over-revving.
So he was overskating the puck, hitting the boards too hard, losing his composure.
Totally. Then, when he got benched, he dropped to a 3 or 4. Heavy legs, half a step slow. He was completely outside his optimal 6 or 7 zone.
So what was the intervention?
It was entirely focused on managing that arousal level. Before the game, he had to switch from listening to aggressive rock music to slower, calming music.
Okay, makes sense.
And while he was benched, he was instructed to mentally skate every single shift, to stay engaged mentally rather than checking out emotionally.
So he could maintain a steady level of internal readiness instead of swinging between hyper-anxiety and just, like, total lethargy.
Exactly. And then you have Dexter Manley, the NFL player. He came back after a drug suspension and decided his psyche-up strategy would be to focus on his fear of poverty, of never wanting to return to his old neighborhood.
So he was channeling fear.
He was. And he became so intensely over-aroused, so focused on this negative existential threat, that the Cardinals coaches were afraid to put him into short yardage situations.
Because he was too high-strung.
He was so high-strung, he was a huge risk to jump offside on every play. He had pushed himself way past the peak of that inverted U.
It sounds like he was basically weaponizing his own inner gremlin fear and turning it into this hyper-aggression that actually hurt his performance.
That's a perfect way to put it. The core lesson here, as Carl Hubble said, is that you have zero chance of controlling the game until you first control yourself.
Controlling yourself under pressure. That is the definition of mental toughness.
It is. Mia Hamm's coach had a great name for players who had this. He called them LTGs, legitimate tough guys.
But mental toughness isn't something you're just born with, right? Chris Evert, the tennis champion, she confirmed it's an acquired skill.
It is. It's a chosen mindset. It's a set of behaviors and beliefs that reframe competition not as a threat to be feared, but as a challenge to rise up and meet.
So let's break down these 7 critical characteristics, the 7 C's, because these are really the habits that turn talented people into consistent winners.
Okay, let's do it.
Start with the most foundational one. Competitive. What does that actually look like in practice, beyond just, wanting to win?
It looks like using adversity as fuel. Nancy Lopez, when she'd face a bad break on the golf course, she didn't complain. She said it just drove her to try even harder.
A competitive athlete finds a way to win.
Even when the odds seem stacked. Think of Michael Jordan deciding to switch sports after his first retirement. I mean, that was an almost insane, but ultimately a profoundly competitive decision. He couldn't accept not tackling a new challenge just because it was hard.
Okay, next up is confident. This is more than just feeling good about yourself. It's a deep-seated belief system.
Absolutely. Confidence is that can-do attitude that really stems from preparation. Tiger Woods, even very early in his career, he believed he was the favorite in every single tournament he entered.
And that belief system handles obstacles before they even become real threats.
Right. It's the absence of those self-defeating thoughts that creep in when you don't trust your prep.
Now, control. In a totally chaotic environment, what is a mentally tough athlete actually controlling?
They focus rigorously on the only things they can control. Their emotions, their behavior, their effort, and their focus.
Everything else, the weather, the ref, the crowd, bad bounces, you have to just ignore it.
You have to. Maintaining poise in the middle of pandemonium is the ultimate hallmark of control.
That leads right into composure. This seems like the hardest one to maintain when the stakes are at their highest. How do you even practice emotional control?
You practice the physical response to emotional triggers. Our sources describe this hockey shoving test. When 2 players shove each other after the whistle, it's the one who retaliates who usually gets the penalty.
So the composed player wins.
The composed player wins. Mentally tough tennis players, they accept a bad line call instantly. They recognize that raging at the umpire is only going to spike their arousal level and wreck their focus for the next point.
The motto is simple. Keep your cool when the heat is on.
Because your opponent is counting on you to lose it.
And the 5th C is committed. We hear about dedication all the time, but how does commitment really show up day to day?
It's the relentless focus of your time and your energy on your goals. John McEnroe said that to make it to the top level, the people who succeed simply wanted it more.
Okay, 6th is courage. This one feels a little complex. We usually think of physical courage. But what about mental courage?
Mental courage is the willingness to take necessary risks in order to grow. Paul Stoltz's analogy here is perfect. He says most people are campers on the mountain of success.
Campers.
Yeah, they climb halfway up, they set up camp, and they just enjoy the view. They're unwilling to risk that final difficult ascent. The mentally tough are climbers.
So they're willing to risk failure, to try new things, to push past their comfort zones to reach their full potential.
That's it.
And finally, consistency. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being reliable.
Consistency really speaks to inner strength. These athletes, they show up and they deliver a high level of effort and execution every single day, even when they feel physically sick or mentally exhausted.
They refuse to use external circumstances as an excuse.
Never. This consistent performance, playing their best even when they feel their worst, that is what separates the good from the truly great.
Okay, so once you've built that mental toughness, the next critical shift is adopting what the sources call responsibility psychology. And the core principle is that you absolutely cannot control what happens outside of your immediate performance. You can only control yourself and your response to events.
It is such a simple idea, but it is terrifyingly hard to actually implement. Pitchers like Greg Maddux or an outfielder like Tim Salmon, they knew they couldn't control the umpire, the crowd, the other team. only the execution of their next pitch or their next at-bat.
This requires completely abandoning the blame game.
Completely. Successful people accept responsibility for their game, win or lose. The example of Stan Musial facing a pitcher throwing an illegal spitball is just gold.
He didn't complain. He didn't ask the umpire to check the ball.
Nope. He simply advised his teammates, don't worry, don't complain, just hit the dry side like I do.
Wow. So he took this uncontrollable variable, the illegal pitch, and he just incorporated it into his strategy. He refused to let an external factor dictate his response.
That is pure inner excellence.
And we have an anecdote in the source material that involves the author himself. He had just finished giving a lecture on this exact principle, controlling your response in the face of uncontrollable adversity.
And the phone rang.
The ultimate real-world test.
Yeah, he gets a call from the notoriously volatile new coach of the Cardinals, Buddy Ryan, who immediately tells him he's being fired.
Just like that. An unexpected, devastating career blow. So when you're faced with a moment like that, a moment of perceived injustice or just crushing disappointment, the instinct is to react, to lash out, to get angry, to burn bridges. How do you physically stop yourself from reacting negatively when it feels so real?
You have to use the very tools we just talked about, control and composure. The author said he felt that immediate surge of anger and disappointment, that urge to retaliate.
Of course.
But he remembered his own teaching. He forced himself to pause, take a deep breath, and reframe the situation. He realized he couldn't control Buddy Ryan's decision, but he could absolutely control his response.
What was his response?
Instead of venting or pleading, he swallowed his pride and disappointment. He chose to wish Ryan good luck with the season.
Oh, wow.
And that single decision, choosing a professional, controlled response over an emotional one, it not only showed his character, but it prevented him from creating a negative reputation. He walked his talk. He proved that this philosophy isn't just theory, it's a practical skill you need for career longevity.
That decision to control the self is so vital because ultimately the biggest obstacle to our own excellence is, well, ourselves. We have to talk about the gremlins.
Yes. This is rooted in something called self-consistency theory. The idea is that we often sabotage our own success because we unconsciously seek to act in a way that is consistent with our own negative self-concept.
So if you believe deep down that you don't deserve success or that you're only pretty good, you'll unconsciously slam on the brakes when real excellence is within your grasp.
You have to conquer the gremlins to get out of your own way. We saw this with the pitcher Shawn Estes, who admitted that early in his career, when he did well, he just dismissed it as luck. But when he performed poorly, he was incredibly self-critical and condemning.
He was constantly reinforcing a negative self-image.
Constantly.
Okay, let's break down the most destructive of these internal gremlins, starting with fear. This is rarely a physical fear of harm. It's the psychological threat to our self-esteem or ego, the fear of failure and public humiliation.
And that fear absolutely paralyzes the mind and the body. The sources cite this great example of a brilliant brain surgeon who can operate for 12 hours with a rock-steady hand, but becomes jelly over a 4-foot downhill putt. The stakes are tiny, but the ego threat is huge. Fear makes you play small and guarded, and that prevents the flowing, confident movements you need for excellence.
Next are anger and anxiety. Anger, it says, is often rooted in frustration, that gap between your high expectations and your current reality. And anxiety is that generalized dread that something bad might happen.
This leads to the phenomenon of white line fever. An athlete performs beautifully in practice. They're warmed up, loose, focused. But the second they cross that white line into the competitive arena, they just tighten up.
And then they get anxious about being anxious.
Exactly. It's a disastrous, self-perpetuating cycle where they become focused entirely on the physical symptoms of dread instead of the task at hand.
And finally, perfectionism. This one sounds positive, but the sources identify it as highly self-critical and destructive.
Perfectionism is often fueled by what's called conditional parenting. The difference between a parent saying, you failed, which is a judgment on yourself, versus your attempt failed, which is a judgment on a behavior.
Interesting distinction.
The perfectionist is driven by this intense fear of failure and these unrealistic, unachievable standards. This gremlin guarantees chronic dissatisfaction no matter how much external success you have.
It leads to those self-condemning thoughts we saw in Shawn Estes.
Right. And the only permanent antidote to these gremlins is just persistent, purposeful action. Setbacks aren't career enders. They are opportunities for necessary comebacks.
The human spirit's capacity for resilience here is just profound.
I mean, you have Jim Abbott, who threw a no-hitter in the major leagues without a right hand. You have Lance Armstrong overcoming cancer to win the Tour de France.
Wow.
And the incredible story of Kurt Warner.
From stocking shelves in a grocery store to winning the NFL MVP.
These stories prove that the gremlins of doubt and circumstance can be overcome through just unwavering resolve.
Okay, so once we've identified and started to manage our internal obstacles, we need a clear destination. The forces tell us that extraordinary people live life backward. They create this vivid, desired future vision, and then they dedicate themselves to living into it. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous statement was, "I have a dream," not "I have a detailed 6-month plan."
And the power of that dream lies in its sensory richness and conviction. Look at the anecdote of Dwight Smith, who was not a highly touted baseball prospect.
Right.
When people asked him about his future, he didn't just say, "Oh, I hope to make the majors." He had this crystal clear, sensory-rich dream, playing for the Cubs, hitting .300, and singing the national anthem at Wrigley Field.
And he achieved all three.
All three. His dream was so real in his mind, he just had to catch up to it in reality.
So to structure this process, we use what's called the ACT backward exercise. It's a mechanism for bringing that dream into the present moment.
The A is for accept your present state. This requires a brutally honest self-assessment of your current strengths and weaknesses. And this is hard because it takes real courage to face reality, warts and all.
The C is for create your desired state. This is where that visualization comes back in. It has to be vivid, sensory, and detailed, just like Dwight Smith's vision. You're creating the blueprint.
And the T is take action steps. This is where the goals live. They bridge the gap between acceptance and creation. Researchers Locke and Latham established definitively that successful people are intensely goal-oriented.
Because goals bring the future into the present, allowing you to act on it right now.
Exactly.
And crucially, not all goals are created equal. We have to focus primarily on performance goals, the actions you can control, rather than outcome goals, the results that rely on external variables.
That distinction is so vital. An outcome goal is winning the championship or hitting a .300 batting average. A performance goal is throwing a first pitch strike 65% of the time, or having 4 quality at-bats per game, regardless of whether you get a hit.
And the outcome takes care of itself if you ruthlessly nail the process goals.
Pretty much. We saw this with a Class A pitcher who was panicked because he had a losing record. The outcome goal, his win-loss record, was destroying him mentally.
But his actual performance was okay.
Better than okay. When his counselor checked his stats, his ERA and his strikeout rate, his performance goals were actually better than when he was winning earlier in the season.
So he was controlling his process, but the results were being dictated by things like fielding errors and just bad luck.
Right. The focus immediately shifted back to pitch command, and his mental game recovered instantly.
And of course, the goals should be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. A powerful dream is just a vague wish until you give it a deadline and a pathway.
That's right.
So if the dream provides the vision, commitment provides the necessary fuel to get there. And the sources are unrelenting on this point. Talent is never enough.
Never. Magic Johnson said the best players are always the hardest workers. Vince Lombardi took it even further. He said that hard work makes it harder to surrender.
This brings us to the famous story of Ricky Prohl, the undersized wide receiver who was drafted in the 3rd round. 10 years later, he catches the game-winning touchdown in the NFC Championship, and he lands on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He's hailed as an overnight success.
And the irony is it's palpable. That overnight success took a full decade of deliberate practice and dedication.
Which is a finding echoed across mastery studies in all sorts of fields. He paid the price every single day, long before the spotlight ever hit him.
Lombardi defined this intense commitment as heart power. It's not just physical strength, but a comprehensive blend of courage, determination, dedication, competitive drive, and the willingness to sacrifice.
It's the internal engine that refuses to let you quit when things get tough.
Right. Rod Carew observed countless players with just immense God-given ability who simply weren't willing to put in the work, and they vanished quickly.
While the moderately talented guys who just outworked everyone stayed in the big leagues for 15 years.
Excellence isn't an act, it's a habit.
And to maintain that powerful commitment, ruthless focus is mandatory. As the sources remind us, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goal.
Distractions are anything that pulls you away from that dream you committed to.
The sources are very pragmatic here about practical avoidance strategies. This involves saying a firm, non-negotiable no to vices that can erode that long-term commitment.
Yeah, Carl Lewis, the Olympic champion, was crystal clear on this. He said, if you get involved with drugs or certain supplements, you'll never truly know your full potential because you're quitting on yourself. The physical and psychological cost is just too high.
And the risks are tragic and immediate. Bill Tuttle, a former baseball player, developed cancer from smokeless tobacco. Phoenix Suns player Tom Gugliotta suffered a severe seizure after taking a dietary supplement a friend gave him.
A supplement he didn't even research. It nearly cost him his life and his career. These aren't just moral judgments, they're practical performance considerations.
It's also about avoiding the crowd mentality. Janet Evans, the Olympic swimmer, she accepted that she'd miss parties because she had to stick to her schedule. She realized the parties weren't as fun as a gold medal would be.
Right, and Kevin Johnson, practicing on Saturday nights, he knew that conforming to the crowd wasn't going to take him where he wanted to go. You have to associate with people who make you better and be big enough to walk away from toxic situations.
Jackie Robinson was given that critical advice. Don't go looking for trouble, but be big enough to walk away from it when it finds you. That takes immense discipline and focus.
The ultimate counter-mantra came from Ron Wolfley, the fearless NFL player. He delivered this to high school athletes. When they asked what fueled him, he said the only drugs he uses are the 4 Ds.
The 4 Ds.
Desire, dedication, determination, and discipline. He said these are the non-costly, non-toxic fuels that live inside your heart and sustain that long-term commitment.
Commitment is sustained by attitude. Dave Winfield observed that so many players enter the game with similar physical skills. The real difference is attitude, not aptitude.
Your attitude is the lens through which you view the world, and it dictates your altitude.
And optimism provides a tremendous strategic advantage. Optimists statistically live longer, they're more successful, and critically, they expect breakthroughs.
Think of Robin Yount. He'd struggle badly one week, yet he was eager for his tee time the next day because he just knew he was due for a great round.
It's a great point. Since you don't know what's going to happen anyway, why not adopt the high-performance attitude that you're due for success?
Exactly.
But what if you are prone to pessimism? How do you unlearn that deeply ingrained thought pattern? The sources give us the 3 Ps framework for changing that mindset.
First, permanence. Optimists see setbacks as temporary, not permanent. It's not, I am a failure. It's, that attempt failed and I can fix it tomorrow.
So it confines the defeat to a small, transient moment in time.
Right. Second, pervasiveness. Optimists confine problems to a small box. They prevent them from bleeding into other areas of life. A bad meeting at work doesn't mean your entire life, career, and relationships are all failing. It was just a bad meeting.
And third is personalization. This is maybe the most strategic shift.
I think it is. Optimists internalize victories. I played great, we executed the game plan brilliantly, and they externalized defeats, they got lucky, or the field conditions were tough.
While pessimists do the exact opposite. They internalize failure, it's all my fault. And they externalize success, oh, we just got lucky.
That simple reframing preserves what's called self-efficacy.
And self-efficacy is that bedrock belief in your own ability to be successful. Tiger Woods, following in Nicklaus's footsteps, expects to win every tournament. That belief drives the necessary behavior.
But those self-limiting or irrational beliefs like, I'm not big enough or I must not risk failure, they will always constrain your potential.
And the antidote to those self-limiting thoughts is positive affirmations.
They have to be powerful, positive, and crucially articulated in the present tense. You're speaking the reality you want into existence. The master of this, of course, was Muhammad Ali.
Of course.
He taught himself and the entire world that you have to believe you are the best, and if you don't, you pretend until that belief takes root.
Okay, so we've prepared the body, we've prepared the mind, we've anchored the attitude. Now we get to the moment of execution. All of that commitment and preparation means nothing if you can't fully commit to the action. Bernhard Langer's rule is perfect. A wrong decision is generally less disastrous than indecision.
Indecision paralyzes. Harvey Penick, the legendary golf instructor, he asked the obvious question. If there is doubt in your mind, how can your muscles know what they are expected to do?
Doubt sends conflicting signals. It leads to jerky, tentative execution.
And the most famous, just painful example of the cost of indecision is Scott Hawk at the 1990 Masters playoff. He was facing a short 2-foot putt to win the Masters.
A putt he should have made automatically.
Instead, he circled the ball, staring, analyzing, questioning himself for 55 agonizing seconds. He just could not, in that moment, trust his years of experience and talent.
And when he finally stroked the ball,
The tension and doubt in his system caused him to miss it completely. It slid 3 feet past the hole. He lost the playoff.
it's just a brutal lesson.
Yeah.
You have to be 100% committed to the action, even if the action is technically imperfect. Sandy Koufax said, it's better to throw a poor pitch wholeheartedly than the right pitch with doubt.
This is where routines become so critical. Routines like Nomar Garciaparra's fidgety gestures before he stepped into the batter's box, they aren't superstitions.
Right, they're not rituals, they're routines.
They're purpose-driven triggering mechanisms that switch the mind from a thinking, analytical mode to a trusting execution mode.
So you think behind the ball, and you trust over the ball.
Exactly. Once you step into that routine, the conscious, critical mind has to be silenced. As Tiger Woods discovered, his body knew how to play golf. The real challenge was keeping the chattering, second-guessing part of his mind out of the way.
And when trust, preparation, and focus all align perfectly, you enter the pinnacle of performance, the zone, or what the sources call white moments.
This is the highest level of flow. It's often described as effortless and unconscious, the Japanese concept of mushin, or no mind.
It's the reward for all the hard work. When athletes are in the groove, they report this immense sense of clarity, a relaxed feeling, and total absorption. Tony Jacklin described it as being in a cocoon, aware of nothing but the task at hand.
And the distortion of time and space are the most frequently cited indicators of being in the zone.
Time seems to slow down dramatically.
Reggie Miller, describing a peak performance, said the whole court just seemed to move in slow motion, which gave him extra milliseconds to react.
And Jim Catfish Hunter, when he pitched his perfect game, he said he was in a daze, just going on autopilot. He didn't even think about the perfect game until it was over.
And space distortion is also common. Charles Barkley joked after scoring 56 points that the basket looked like a hula hoop. Others report the baseball looks like a grapefruit.
When the mind is quiet, the sensory system just processes information without any friction.
But the paradox is that the zone cannot be forced. The harder you try to get into it, the further away you push it. It's not something you achieve through effort. It's something you allow to happen by focusing entirely on the process and releasing the outcome.
Unfortunately, the high-performance journey inevitably involves slumps. Johnny Bench defined a slump as like a soft bed, easy to get into and hard to get out of.
And Billy Williams astutely noted that a slump starts in the head and it winds up in the stomach. Mental doubt leads directly to physical tension.
And the primary cause of a slump is always paralysis by analysis overthinking.
Richie Zisk perfectly dubbed that critical, overanalyzing internal voice the chattering monkey. If you are listening to that monkey, you cannot perform fluidly.
The famous Snoopy anecdote captures this perfectly. Snoopy complimented Woodstock on his flight and landing, and then he started quizzing him on the mechanics of flight, the angle of the wings, lift, momentum.
And Woodstock, trying to think about what he was doing, immediately just fell to the ground with a clunk.
The crucial rule, when the moment of execution arrives, you have to stop thinking.
You have to.
So the solution to a slump is always simplification. When we're struggling, we naturally try to do more practice, more changes, more analysis. But the sources mandate doing less. You have to return to the absolute fundamentals.
Ken Griffey Jr.'s simple philosophy was, I see the ball, I hit the ball. Matt Williams used external focus to simplify. It's not between me and the pitcher, it's between me and the ball.
That external focus short-circuits the internal commentary.
It does. And when you're in competitive hole, the first rule must apply. Stop digging. When anxiety rises, we tend to hurry. Jamie Moyer, the veteran pitcher, knew that if he felt rushed, he had to step off the mound, rub the ball, shake out the tension. He intentionally stopped, physically and mentally slowing down to return himself to the present moment, one breath at a time.
As we synthesize all these mental skills, we have to accept that excellence rarely lives in rigid black and white rules. It often lives in contradiction.
We have to be willing to play in the gray, as the sources describe it, recognizing that success often comes from these counterintuitive adjustments.
I mean, think of the Fosbury flop in high jumping, or the rope-a-dope strategy in boxing. They seem completely illogical, yet they redefine performance. We have 4 key performance paradoxes we have to be willing to embrace.
The first paradox, less can be more. We believe more effort always equals more results, but over-practicing leads to burnout and injury. The sources cite the Cardinals practicing extra on Thanksgiving, leading directly to Tim McDonald blowing out his knee.
So diligence is great, but rest and recovery are essential parts of performance.
Exactly. Second, Trying easier can be harder. Overtrying, especially in fine motor skills, leads to the contraction of opposing muscles. Bud Winter's runners were consistently faster when he told them to run at 90% effort.
Because the antagonist muscles were relaxed. So trying too hard creates tension, and that kills flow.
Right. Third, playing it safe can be dangerous. Being unwilling to take necessary risks prevents growth. Michelle Kwan, in the 1998 Olympics, chose a safer routine and lost the gold medal to Tara Lipinski, who risked a more difficult performance. Risk is necessary for evolution.
And finally, a step backward is a step forward. You have to be willing to get worse temporarily to implement long-term improvements.
Yes, Tiger Woods, already the world's best golfer, willingly retooled his entire swing under Butch Harmon, knowing his performance would dip while he retrained.
He traded temporary regression for ultimate long-term mastery. This willingness to embrace awkwardness for the sake of growth is the sign of a truly committed competitor.
This entire journey, it just circles back to Aristotle's fundamental principle. Excellence is not a singular act, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do.
And consistency, even when you feel terrible, is the difference between good and great. Jack Nicklaus called it the greatest and toughest art in golf, playing badly well.
And even when you don't feel consistent, you have to act the part. Dennis Eckersley, the closing pitcher, said he sometimes just faked it. He'd maintain confident body language and posture to project a sense of control, even if his stuff felt off.
Joe DiMaggio summed it up. You ought to run the hardest when you feel the worst.
Yeah.
You act yourself into a way of thinking, not the other way around.
And the ultimate goal is achieving inner excellence, which leads you to become an MVP, a most valuable person. This quality requires commitment and character, regardless of your physical gifts.
So let's review the 10 qualities of inner excellence we've synthesized from all our sources, recognizing that these are the habits you have to cultivate daily.
1. Dream. Having that clear, compelling, sensory-rich vision.
2. Commitment. Living your life on purpose, willing to pay the price.
3. Responsibility. Controlling your response, never blaming.
4. Openness to learning. Embracing continuous improvement.
5. Optimism. Using attitude as your strategic lens.
6. Self-confidence.
Yeah.
You can't outperform your self-image.
7. Emotional control. Being the master of your emotions.
8. Adversity quotient. Seeing setbacks as stepping stones.
9. Character. Doing the right thing, even when no one's watching.
And 10. Persistence and patience. Never giving up on your dream.
So we've taken the deep dive into treating the mind as the essential performance engine. The mind is the crucial battleground, but it's not impenetrable. It can be systematically conditioned. We've extracted practical, repeatable mental skills, from the power of vivid visualization and the ACT backward process, to controlling arousal with the inverted U-curve and managing those internal gremlins that sabotage our potential.
And we return to the core truth here. Confidence, the very foundation of excellence, is a direct result of comprehensive preparation, both physical and mental. By intentionally building your mind gym, clarifying your performance goals, and constantly auditing your self-talk, you create a foundation for reliable, resilient, and repeatable peak performance, no matter what external pressure you face.
It's true. What lies ahead of us or behind us is ultimately of little consequence compared to the enormous strength that lies within us.
The sources describe heroes as simply being ordinary people who commit to playing from the heart, who systematically overcome self-doubt and fear. I mean, you think of Kurt Warner, the grocery bagger who refused to quit, or Gene Driscoll, who won the Boston Marathon in the wheelchair division 6 times. They didn't possess some unique courage, they possessed a unique commitment. Ralph Waldo Emerson captured this essence of inner excellence when he said, "A hero is no braver than the ordinary person. He is just braver 5 minutes longer."
5 minutes longer.
So the provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. If courage is merely the opposite of discouragement, what small act of persistence, commitment, or self-belief will you choose today to be braver 5 minutes longer and finally achieve your own inner excellence? We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.